They call them precision missions. Everything rehearsed, every contingency planned, and every variable accounted for. But precision only works when the world behaves like the models say it will. What happens when the ocean, the weather, and human error refuse to cooperate? What happens when, in the dead of night, the wrong light cuts across the water? In early 2019, a team handpicked from SEAL Team 6, Red Squadron, the same unit that killed Osama bin Laden, and also the unit the nation points to when it wants a miracle, slipped from a U.S. nuclear submarine into the Black Atlantic off a jagged stretch of the North Korean coast. The objective was surgical and simple on paper. Plant a covert listening device close enough to intercept communications tied to Kim Jong-un's inner circle, giving American negotiators an edge during tense talks. It was the kind of mission that only exists because diplomacy sometimes needs a private line to the other side's truth. The operation wasn't improvised. It was authorized at the highest levels. The reporting says that President Trump signed off, and it unfolded like a maze of classified choreography. Subs, mini-submersibles, wet-docked delivery vehicles, specialized gear with serial numbers scrubbed off, sterilized weapons, and a small team of operators who had trained for months to move silent and unseen. The plan was simple. Approach underwater, surface only when necessary, fin to a rocky beach, and plant the device where it couldn't be spotted from the air or the shore. That was the lane. Narrow, dangerous, but doable if everyone did their part. But the sea is full of strangers, and the night is not an obedient companion. After their 2 mini-subs parked offshore and the shore party finned in, the SEALs found the drop zone occupied. A small boat, just a local fishing skiff according to later reporting, was already there. Flashlights scanned the water, a man dove in. From the perspective of the team on the shore, the world narrows to a single decision point. Are those lights a threat, or are they fishermen? In the moment when perception and reality diverge, the cost of being wrong is measured in lives. The senior enlisted leader made a call. Fire. Within seconds, everyone on the small boat was dead. The SEALs, operating under the belief that their cover was blown and that the North Korean forces could be closing in, did what special operators are trained to do in the worst calculus. They ensured the mission's secrecy above all else. Pause for a second and ask yourself, what chain of command and what moral ledger justify that decision? There are rules of engagement. There are classified authorities. But there is also the primitive, immediate decision a squad leader has in the dark. If you stop a mission to check, do you risk everyone aboard the submarine and a diplomatic train that's already left the station? If you shoot, do you save the larger plan while extinguishing human lives? Those questions landed in the laps of officials years later, not just in military briefings, but in the halls of Congress, in opinion columns, and in the public record once journalists decided enough had been told to justify publication. The Pentagon declined to comment. Publicly, the White House denied knowledge. Privately, people who had been briefed on the mission said it had been greenlit and executed. The gap between what leaders say in public and what runs on silent channels has consequences. So where did this leave the mission and the people who planned it? The immediate operational outcome was plain. There was no device or new intelligence. You see, North Korea, a regime that has rehearsed for war for decades, could have seen a footprint and responded. Diplomacy around the 2019 summit weeks could have unraveled. Instead, the summit proceeded. The public didn't learn of the incident until 2025. That delay is itself a question. What stays classified and for how long? And who decides when the public has a right to know? Accountability followed, but in fits and starts. When the story finally came to light, it forced a review of whether Congress had been appropriately informed, a legal touchstone for covert actions and the use of military force. Critics argued that key lawmakers had not been told, raising potential violations of notification statutes designed to keep representative government in the loop about how lethal force is used in secret. Supporters of operational security argued that revealing more would put lives and methods at risk. And then there are the veterans and insiders who reacted when the story dropped. Some defended the SEALs, saying the men on the ground faced a split-second choice in hostile waters and were judged later by people who were not there. Others called the reporting incomplete or politically motivated. Still, others said that the leak itself was a form of accountability, a painful but necessary airing of how covert actions can go wrong. Why leak? People give reasons: to pressure policymakers, to force internal reform, or to make sure failures don't get recycled as normal. Whatever the motive, the leak achieved something immediate. It shifted a secret operational failure into a national conversation about risk, oversight, and moral cost. We should be careful here. Reporting also left some blanks. Intelligence and operations people told reporters they withheld details for security reasons. That means the record we have is detailed enough to shock, but incomplete enough to leave question marks about intent, the precise sequence of decisions, and how close the incident came to provoking a larger confrontation. For voters and policymakers, those question marks matter. They are the difference between a mission that returns intelligence and a mission that returns coffins. There's also a strategic lesson buried in the drama. Some kinds of intelligence require being physically close. Satellites and long-range sensors are powerful, but human geography and signal physics often demand human placement. That requirement creates the exact kind of tension that produced this failure. A political need for certainty colliding with the practical limits of covert infiltration. When you authorize an operation that depends on absolute silence in a place that also has people who fish for a living, you're asking a lot from both the operators and the gods of chance. So, what's the final tally? 3 civilians are reported dead. The device was never placed. An investigation was later authorized to review what went wrong and who should have been informed. The episode reopened debates about the appropriate balance between secrecy and oversight, the morality of covert lethal action, and the price of intelligence that has to be bought with human risk. We should close with a simple, hard question. When a democracy sends its most secret forces into the shadows, who owns the moral ledger for what happens there? The operators on the ground? The commander who signs the order? The institutions that keep secrets for decades? The public that demands both national security and democratic accountability? Well, there are no easy answers, only hard trade-offs. And in this case, those trade-offs were measured in a few lives, a failed device, and a headline that forced a country to reckon with the cost of secrecy.